All glories to the Asambhava Buddha. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Gaur Premanandi Hari.
Hari Hari. Oh, Maharaj.
Yeah. Oh, a big one.
His Holiness Kavichandra Swami Maharaj ki Jai. Oh, Premanandi.
Kali Yuga. Sometimes the roses smell good, sometimes they nothing. Has anybody been to Ujjain temple? In Ujjain they have, right in front of the temple, there's a big circle full of roses. And even if you're like a couple meters away, the smell is like knockout, you know. Different kinds of roses or something. Bhakti Charma's energy coming off or something. Verse 43, is it? That's where the mark is. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Nasta Prayeshu Abhidreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. They used to have a light here, I think. Nunam Nipanam Trimado Pahatanam Mahim Muhu Chalayatam Chamubi Badat Prapanarti Jihir Shayesho Api Upaika Sattagam Bhagavan Karunam Nunam Nipanam Trimadot Patanam Mahimahus Chalayatam Chamubi Vadat Prapanarti Jahir Shayesho Apyupaikshatagam Bhagavan Karunam Nunam Nipanam Trimadot Patanam Mahimahus Chalayatam Chamubi Vadat Prapanarti Jahir Shayesho Apyaipakatagam Bhagavan Karunam. Okay, anyone else? Nunam Nipanam Trimadot Patanam Mahimahus Chalayatam Chamubi Vadat Prapanarti Jahir Shayesho Apyupaitagam Bhagavan Karunam Nunat Prapanam Trimadot Patanam Mahimahus Chalayatam Chamubi Vadat Prapanarti Jahir Shayesho apalpataitagam bhagavan karunam.
Nunam Nipanam Trimad Madotpathanam
Nunam nripyanam trimadotpatanam.
Mahim Muhuschalayatam Chamubi
Mahim muhuschalayatam chamubi.
Vadat Prapanarthi Jihirshayesho
Vadat prapanarti jahirshayesho.
Apya Upaiksatagham Bhagavan Kurunam
Apyupaitata sagam bhagavan karunam. Okay, we don't have a board here. I saw Prabhupada at least one time, like, before, of course, we had a chalkboard, you know, but one place they didn't have one. Prabhupada was really angry. Said, why you don't have the verse up there? He wanted everyone to chant. Now, most of the time everybody has it, you know, but there are devotees who still are not techies. They don't have their phone in their hand. And now many just have it on they have it on their TV, you know, they just...
You get sick.
Nunam,
Nunam
of course. Nipanam,
Panam
of the kings.
of the kings
Three.
Three
Mada utpatanam,
Manavutpatanam
going astray out of false pride.
going astray out of false pride
Mahim,
Mahim
earth.
Earth
Muhu,
Muhu
constantly.
Constantly
Chalayatam,
Alayatam
agitating.
Agitated
Chamubi,
Chamubi
by movement of soldiers.
by movement of soldiers
Badat,
Badat
from the act of killing.
from the act of killing
Prapana,
Prapanna
surrendered. Arti Jahir Shaya,
Arti Jihirshaya
willing to relieve the distress of the sufferers.
willing to relieve the distress of the sufferers
To relieve.
to relieve
Saha Isha,
Sa
Isha, the Lord.
the Lord
Api, in spite of.
in spite of
Upaichata,
Vaikshata
waited.
waited
Agam,
Agham
offenses.
offenses
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan
the Supreme Lord.
the Supreme Lord
Kuru Nam,
Gurunam
of the Kurus.
of the Gurus
Despite his being the Lord and being always willing to relieve the distress of the sufferers, he, Krishna, refrained from killing the Kurus, although they committed all sorts of sins, and although he saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements carried out under the dictation of three kinds of false pride. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Again, the purports are the most important. Prabhupada said that purports are his personal ecstasies. No one else can write them. So it's not that he just translated books. He studied the commentaries of many acharyas. He had one book with all the commentaries, and then he would compose his purports, which he would read himself, because he said, I want to see what Krishna has written. So just to give some idea what these are. That's why we can read them again and again and again and again. The last day I was there at Union Square, there was one older man watching, and that day I tried to approach many people who were watching, and they'd all run away. So I was thinking, I'm tired, maybe I'll just forget it. And then I went up to him, and he was sweet. He said, you only have one song? You just sing one song all the time? I said, yeah. I said, this song includes every other song in this one song, so we just sing this one, and we don't have to worry. And he just agreed. I said, God, everything is created by God, and God is everywhere. So if you have God, you have everything, and you agree to that. He's completely nice, and that's the point. If If we have Krishna, then you have everything. And if you don't have Krishna, no matter what else you have, it's all zero, useless. Purport. As declared in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord appears in the mortal world to execute his much-needed mission of killing the miscreants and giving protection to the suffering faithful. In spite of that mission, Lord Krishna tolerated the insult to Draupadi by the Kurus and the injustices perpetrated against the Pandavas, as well as insults to himself. The question may be raised, why did he tolerate such injustices and insults in his presence? Why did he not chastise the Kurus immediately when Draupadi was insulted in the assembly by the Kurus, by their attempt to see her naked in the presence of all? The Lord protected Draupadi by supplying an unlimited length of clothing, but he did not chastise the insulted party immediately. This silence of the Lord did not mean, however, that he excused the offenses of the Kurus. There were many other kings on earth who had become very proud of their three kinds of possession: wealth, education, and followers. So that must be the three kinds of false ego. They were constantly agitating the earth by movements of military strength. The Lord was just waiting to get them together on the battlefield of Kurukshetra and kill them all at once, just to make a shortcut in his killing mission. Godless kings, or heads of state, when puffed up by advancement in material wealth, education, and increase of population, always make a show of military strength and give trouble to the innocent. When Lord Krishna was personally present, there were many such kings all over the world, and he thus arranged for the battle of Kurukshetra. In his manifestation of Vishwarupa, the Lord expressed his mission of killing as follows: I have willingly descended on the earth in my capacity of inexorable time in order to decrease the unwanted population. I shall finish all those who have assembled here except you, the Pandavas. This killing does not wait for you to take part in it. It's already arranged. All will be killed by me. If you want to become famous as a hero of the battlefield and thus enjoy the booty of war, then, O Savyasachi, just become the immediate cause of this killing and thus take the credit. I have already killed all the great warriors, Bhishma, Drona, Jayadratha, Karna, and many other great generals. Do not worry, fight the battle and be famous as a great hero. That's chapter 11, Bhagavad Gita, 32 to 34. The Lord always wants to see his devotees as the hero of some episode while he himself performs. He wanted to see his devotee and friend Arjuna as the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra, and thus he waited for all the miscreants of the world to assemble. That and nothing else is the explanation of his waiting. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksurmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam. He knew, Rupa Goswami knew the mind of Lord Chaitanya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Desatarane Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadhanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Tvishe Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. So we have a very auspicious day, the disappearance of Sanatana Goswami and our Bhakti Charu Goswami. And Krishna arranged that he would leave on this day. That way we always remember him. Because Sanatana Goswami is always remembered as, the basis of our mission practically. And so his day is always remembered. Like Krishna arranges different things. Gaura Govinda Goswami left on Bhaktisiddhanta's disappearance day or something. So we'll be talking about Bhakti Charamraj more lately afterward. Sanatana Goswami is one of the original Goswamis, an example of everything we're supposed to be. He was born in the Saraswat Brahmin family, which in Brahmin society is considered the highest of the Brahmanas. Even though Brahmanas consider themselves the highest, and they also have different ranks. Everybody in Kali Yuga is trying to establish that they're better than everyone else. But then he was forced into the service of the Nawab Hussain Shah, the Muslim king of Bengal. Because somehow or other, they were nearby, Rupa and Sanatan, and the king was trying to build a big minaret, these towers. And there was some problem, and Sanatana Goswami gave advice to them on how to do it. So the king saw their extreme intelligence, and he forced them into his service, saying if they didn't take the work, then he would, increase his killing of Hindus all over the place. So that's why they took the job. But then, in a strict Hindu society, they were outcasts because they were working for the Muslim government. And they looked like Muslim, and they got Muslim names. Sanatana was a prime minister, and Rupa was a finance minister, so they were very big positions, very, very wealthy. They were practically running the whole of Bengal. The king would be off conquering other places. But they were Vaishnavas. They were always studying Srimad Bhagavatam. They were supporting all the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas of the whole area. They had a little Vrindavan theme park. They had a very big property. If you ever go there, huge property they had. And so they had a Vrindavan theme park with murtis and cows and, the temples and everything. And the temples weren't there then, but just Vrindavan Leela, and Krishna and Balaram and the gopis. But then they knew about Lord Chaitanya, and I think they wrote to him. And Lord Chaitanya, when he was supposedly on his way to Vrindavan, he went out of his way a bit to visit that place, to meet them. They were extremely humble. They were bowing down and, presenting themselves as the most fallen. And Lord Chaitanya picked them up and said no, you are my eternal servants. And they initiated them right away. And then he left that place. He didn't go to Vrindavan at that time. He went back to Puri. And Rupa Goswami resigned, and they planned that he could resign first. His position was easier to replace, and he took a huge amount of money, 3 boatloads of gold. It took him 1 year to distribute his gold to Vaishnavas and temples and his family members, and before he went to meet Lord Chaitanya. And then Sanatan quit going to work. Of course, the people under him were happy they got to do the job and get the benefit. The king got very angry because Sanatan was reporting sick. King sent a doctor, and the doctor said he's not sick, he's studying Srimad Bhagavatam all the time with the Brahmins. So the king was very angry, and Sanatan said, I quit, I don't want to do this job anymore. And he said, you have to. You know, I need you very much because you're running the whole show and I have to travel and conquer. And so he imprisoned him somehow or other. And so Sanatan bribed, which, you know, is an ordinary Vaishnava activity. He bribed the jailkeeper. The jailkeeper had been promoted by Sanatan, so Sanatan glorified him and he owed him something. So by offering so much gold, Rupa had left a certain percentage of gold with some merchant, like a bank, but a deposit. And so Sanatan gave him all that gold, and then he agreed. He said, just tell the king that I went to the bank of the Ganga to pass, and I fell in, and you know, he had the heavy shackles on or something, and disappeared down the river. A very difficult thing to do. I'm sure that guy had to run away also. But so Sanatan had quite an adventure. He was trying to go to meet Lord Chaitanya. He couldn't go by the ordinary ways, so he was crossing a dangerous mountain where there was a lot of thieves, and he stopped at one guest house. And an astrologer told a thief that was running this gift house that this man had 8 pieces of gold, 8 gold coins. So he was planning to kill Sanatan and take them. And he was being extremely friendly and welcoming to Sanatan. And Sanatan, being a politician, could understand something's funny here, you know. Why is he being so overly, you know, because he didn't look very good. He had a Muslim beard and everything. So he asked his servant, his name was Ishan, did you bring some gold? He said, yes, I brought 7 pieces. But he actually had 8. And Sanatan got really angry. He said, you know, this is death for us, you fool. And he went to the man and said, I'll give you, I have 7 pieces of gold, I'll give you, you know, but you help me get across it. So the man was impressed by Sanatan and also realized that I could get the gold now without the sinful activity of killing him. So he agreed, even though he knew there was one more piece of gold. And he made all the arrangements to help Sanatan get across the mountains. And Sanatan told his servant, you go back, you're greedy and you're not qualified to go to Vrindavan. You want to take gold with you. So he let him keep the 1 piece of gold and go back. And somewhere along the way he met his brother-in-law, who was also working for the king and was buying horses. And the brother-in-law was trying to help him, but he didn't want any help. He didn't want to take any money. He didn't want anything. But he said, at least take this nice chadar. We had a really high-class chadar. Maybe one of those, what do they call them? Pashnini or something? Pashmir, yeah. like Guru Kripa bought one for Prabhupada once. It was super warm, but you could like pull it through the eye of a needle, or like really thin. It's made from the hair or the goat's chin or something. Super, it's real. But so he took that. It was cold. It was in the mountains. So when he got to, where was it? Where he met Lord Chaitanya? Varanasi? Not Varanasi? Or not Varanasi.
Sanatana Goswami went in Varanasi.
Huh?
Sanatana Goswami went in Varanasi.
Varanasi. So he went to the home there of Chandrasekhar, where Lord Chaitanya was. Lord Chaitanya told, he said, there's a sadhu at the door, and please, let him in. And he went, and all he saw was this Muslim mendicant, bearded, long hair, looking grungy, because he'd been walking for a long time. He said, there's no sadhu there, there's just one Muslim, And Lord Chaitanya said no. So he came in, and Lord Chaitanya was so happy, and he embraced him and greeted him, and Sanatan bowing down. And then Lord Chaitanya told him, you look like a hippie. And you should go and cut your beard and hair. So he did that. And then he was coming daily. He wouldn't eat with Lord Chaitanya, but he'd get the remnants. But he noted that Lord Chaitanya was always, he told Chandrasekhar, give him new clothes, and he wouldn't take any new clothes. He just took some used cloth and made just a gum shirt kind of thing and a chadar, that they wear, that the Goswamis wear, the renunciates. Radhanath Swami describes how someone gave him that kind of dress. Told him, throw your pants and everything in the river, and that's what he was wearing. But he said Lord Chaitanya was always looking at that blanket. So he thought, he doesn't like that I have this fancy blanket, It was obviously very costly. So he went down by the river where the beggars were, and he found one beggar that had an old quilt. We all know what quilt is. Just many pieces of scrap cloth, and they sew it together and make one big cloth. Huh? So he said, I want to change. I'll give you this nice blanket. And the guy thought it can't be true. He's crazy. And no, Sanatan said, no, I'm serious. So he traded. He came back with this old dirty quilt. And then Lord Chaitanya was very happy. Then Lord Chaitanya instructed him for 2 months. And about everything, and it, it's an amazing section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, many chapters. The beauty of Krishna, and he's describing all the Vaikuntha planets and all the different Vishnus. And I had experience, one time I was reading that one of the times, and I got to that part where he started saying, this Vishnu has the club in the right hand, upper right hand, and the flower in this. And I was thinking, I don't need to read this, I want to go ahead to about Krishna. But somehow Krishna rescued me, and I realized that Lord Chaitanya is teaching this to Sanatana Goswami, so it must be important, even though I can't understand why is this so important. But it does show us, the unlimited potencies of Krishna. So after he finished all that teaching, then Lord Chaitanya asked Sanatana to ask for a benediction. So he asked for the blessing that he would always remember what Lord Chaitanya taught him, and Lord Chaitanya would act through him in order to teach this to others. Very important, consciousness, very important mentality that we're supposed to have. Not that we just want to learn something, but we want to inspire others to also take it up and others to teach it. So Lord Chaitanya was very happy with that, and he blessed him and sent him to Vrindavan. He said, your brother already went to Vrindavan, Rupa. And their mission was to write the books and discover the lost places of Krishna's pastimes. They were very, very intelligent and learned in all the scriptures, and Sanatan was Sanskrit and Persian language, and I don't know what else, and Bengali, of course. And they would study the scriptures about different leelas, and then they would map it out, they would find different places where the people knew where they were, and then they would find the different places of Krishna's pastimes and establish. And the pastimes would reveal them, the places would reveal themselves when they come now. There was also Bhugarbha Goswami, he joined them. And Sanatan would travel all over, we find his bhajan kutis all around. And he wrote the books, and he lived at Govardhan for some time, at Manasi Ganga. He would go around Govardhan every day, the long way. He'd go not right next to the hill, but out a little bit and around. And he would go through the villages, and he would meet all the local people. And like the Krishna Kirtana Ganana Tanaparo Premamritam Bhunidi Dhira Dhira Janapriyo Priyakaro Nirmat Saro Pujito. They were very friendly to everybody because they were not envious, so they were loved by everybody, whether they were ruffians or sadhus or ordinary people. It's described how he would meet the farmers, and he would just ask them, like, what crops are you growing? How many cows do you have? Did your daughter get married yet? And so he was friendly with everybody. Everybody loved him. And nobody wanted him ever to leave their village, but he always did, and he was always chanting, of course. So he was inspiring everybody. Then he was going to move away there from Manasi Ganga because there were too many mosquitoes there. The local people didn't want him to move, but he wouldn't agree. He said, I can't concentrate here, too many mosquitoes. So they prayed to Lord Shiva, whose temple nearby. And Lord Shiva approached Sanatan and said, these people don't want you to leave. You have to stay. He said, I can't stay here. Too many mosquitoes. Lord Shiva said, all right, if I get rid of the mosquitoes, will you stay? So he agreed, and somehow Lord Shiva got rid of the mosquito. And Sanatan stayed. And they say even now there's not so many mosquitoes there. So Sanatan's writings are extremely important. Haribhakta Vilas is very, very important. And most important maybe is Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which we have, fortunately, our Gopi Pranadana translated, and BBT's published. And Gopi said that Sanatan wrote the book and he wrote the purports. And some of them were 40 pages long. So Gopi Pranadana condensed the purports. He didn't. And the book is still very big. But it's an amazing book. Many of you have probably read it. And Boma on the earth, and the Divya in heaven, and the devotees, and many, many chapters. He wrote many other commentaries on and the Srimad Bhagavatam, and many, many different things. In the teachings of two Sanatana Goswami and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, one of the most important sections, Prabhupada put that in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and teachings to Rupa Goswami and Ramananda Roy, the most highly intellectual parts of Chaitanya Charitamrita in the TLC. Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatan, describes that after Sukadev finished, there was little time left before Parikshit would be killed by the snake bird. And his mother came, Uttara, the mother of Sanatana Goswami, and was saying, you have to tell me what you just learned. I want to know. He said, there's no time for that. And she was begging him, so he spoke this Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Now, someone asked me, we don't find this in the Bhagavatam, because we don't have the whole Bhagavatam. I asked my Amala Bhakta Prabhu how many hours, because he read all the Bhagavatam slokas. 92 hours took him. So that's how many, because they were going 24 hours a day, so there's some extra time. So probably other things were spoken that are not recorded, that, for us. Because the Bhagavatam Sukadev spoke in the heavenly planets was 100,000 voices or something, or more than 100,000, a million maybe. And we have 18,000 verses. So anyway, it's he must have had quite a bit of time. So the beginning part is Narada Muni sees one Brahmana worshipping his shalagram, and he's so devoted, and everybody's glorifying him, and Narada tells him, you must get so much mercy of the Lord. He says, no, not really, the king is much better. He went to the king, and the king was very humble, and he ended up going to Indra and Brahma, and everybody was very humble and saying, no, someone else is much better than me, and someone else got much more mercy than me. He got to Shiva and Prahlad. Prahlad was saying, I didn't do any service. The Lord had to save me when I was in trouble. I haven't got any mercy. He made me a king. What kind of mercy is that? It's not a nice job, No time for sadhana or anything. So, what did he say was, I think he said that Hanuman was saying no. He said the Pandavas are much better. And he went to the Pandavas, and Yudhishthira was also very humble, and he said, don't tell anybody that I'm a great devotee, because nobody will want to be a devotee after they hear how I had to suffer. So many things happened to me that were not nice. Because most people are thinking, I'll worship God and everything will be nice. That's how most religious preachers are promising. Everything's going to go great. God, you'll get rich, you'll never get sick, all these things. He said that the Yadus, he went to Dwarka, and the Yadus were also very humble. They said that, that Uddhava is the best. So by the time Narada got to Uddhava, he was in ecstasy, and he was so blissful, and he's going to meet the person who got the most mercy of Krishna. And Uddhava didn't really like being glorified like that. He was glorifying Uddhava like anything after hearing all these other, great people. But Uddhava thought, I don't want to disturb Narada's mood. So he accepted this kind of honor, but he told him the gopis. And then he went to the gopis, and And then he's given the story of Gopakumar, cowherd boy in Vrindavan around Govardhan. And he got a Gopal mantra, and then he went through, and this is just to show us, to teach us. We read Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartin Arjuna. And from the highest planet to the lowest, it's all in, the same thing. And so he went to Puri, became the king of Puri for a long time, and worshiping Lord Jagannath, but he never was quite satisfied, but he was always chanting his Gopal mantra. He ended up getting the Indra, he became the king of heaven, he became Lord Brahma. He traveled through the coverings of the universe. He got to the Brahma Jyoti, still wasn't happy. He got to Vaikuntha, and he was very much attracted. He finally, he kept seeing, everybody looks like Vishnu. So everyone he saw, he thought this, and he started praying, and you must be the Supreme Lord. They said, no, I'm a servant. Finally got in to see the Supreme, and he wanted to embrace him, and everybody said, no, you can't do that. This is on reverence here. But Vishnu treated him very, very nicely. But he wasn't satisfied. He got to Ayodhya, finally got to Goloka. And then he met Krishna, and it was a big, Krishna fell unconscious. People were wondering, what did he do to Krishna? But Krishna was just so happy to have you come back. He said, I've been waiting for you for so long. So I had to come myself and be your guru and get you back. And then he would go back and forth between Goloka and Gokula, but he couldn't really tell the difference. So that's a level that Sanatana Goswami is on. There were many books also by Sanatana Goswami that were never published. They weren't writing for publication, they were writing just for their own purification. And some of the Prabhupada, he said at the Radha Damodar temple there were manuscripts of some of the Goswami's books. And he told a devotee who was with him, if you read these, you would faint or something. It's not really meant for ordinary people to read. That's why they have the Granth Samadhi there at Sanatana's Samadhi. Sanatana established the first temple in Vrindavan, Madan Mohan. Everybody knows that story. So we have to take his mercy and his example of total surrender. Taktva Turnam Asesha Mandalapati Shainim Sadatu Javat. He gave up everything and accepted it. He gave up the association of aristocracy and so much wealth and opulence, family, everything. Even now when we go to Vrindavan, we think it's austere. But in those days there was nothing there. It was a jungle with tigers. And of course there was no poisonous water and no, like it is now, no cars and trucks and exhaust fumes and pollution coming from Delhi and everything. But it was simple living, that's for sure. They just lived not even in huts. They would just pile up some thorn bushes and go to Bhajan Kutir or find a cave, just wherever they could find a place to practice their bhajan. Sanatan was, Rati Manjari Gopi, actually came from Goloka with Lord Chaitanya to help start the mission, actually. He was the leader there in Vrindavan, and others came. Jiva Goswami was their nephew, and then there were finally 6 Goswamis, but he was the head. So we have his books, we have his guidance, we take, Prabhupada has given us many things from Hari Bhakti Vilas. and we have Brihata, and we have other commentaries also, his commentaries on Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada is put the essence of all the Goswamis' commentaries in his purports. So we don't really need all the other, but he did say everyone should read Brihatam Bhagavatamrita. So any comments or questions? We'll hear more about Bhakti-Chara Swami, so I didn't say much, but it's interesting that he disappeared on the same day as same TT, because he's a very similar personality, completely humble, completely scholarly, friendly to everybody, you know, all those qualities he exhibited to the maximum potential, and totally surrendered to spiritual master's orders. So any comment or question? We have a couple minutes. Yeah.
So Sanat Goswami wrote Hari Bhakti Vilas. A lot of that stuff in there, some people are saying, oh, we don't really need to follow it, and other people say we need to follow it. So Maharaj, what have you heard?
Yeah, some of it's not exactly for practicing Vaishnavas, but things that are there, they are, you know, how to perform certain ceremonies, many, many things which Lord Chaitanya told them to write. But it's to help bring others up also, like, you know, so we have to understand. And Prabhupada also comments on that in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Not that we should completely reject it, but some devotees pick out some of the very, you know, like if you eat anything on Ekadasi, you'll go to hell for 1,000,000 lifetimes and stuff like that. Devotees are already observing Ekadasi, so it doesn't mean that if you eat prasadam or something, but it's to inspire people that don't normally do anything to do something. And many people, they don't react unless they're afraid. So. And Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and when he gets to, I think, to Kailash, that's Lord Shiva, then some Vaikuntha Vishnu Dutas come. And he doesn't recognize them, and Lord Shiva tells them about who they are. And then they tell him the glories of Sankirtan. You know, of all the different things, they very, very amazing slokas about the glories of the Sankirtan and chanting the holy name of the Lord. So that's the whole conclusion of all the scriptures. Chant the holy name, which they did, all the Goswamis did all the time. Krishnot kirtana ananatana karo prema mritambo nidhi dira dira jana priyo priya karo nirmat saro purito Radha Krishna pada. And what is it next? Radha Vinda Bhajana Ande Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Radha All right, thank you very much. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. His deity was Madan Mohan. And it's very interesting pastime how he got that deity. The deity was originally with Advaita Acharya, who found him under a banyan tree and left him with the Brahmin family, and the Brahmin gave him to Sanatan. Sanatan was only offering him his dried up chapatis that he was getting on Bhakshish, but then Krishna arranged to build himself a nice temple. It's the first temple in Vrindavan. Jai. Sanatana Goswami ki jai. Bhakti Charu Goswami ki jai. Shri Shivada Govinda ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Kavichandra Maharaj ki jai.
Okay. Hare Krishna.